Hello, everybody. Welcome to another Comic Boom Comic Source collaboration. This is your DC Spotlight for July 30th, 2025. We're traveling back in time. Apologies for being late, as suspected, which is kind of why I wanted to record the one that was supposed to come out the week after San Diego, ahead of time, but we were just too busy. And then, you come back from San Diego and it's like, it's not actually a vacation, especially not for me. I had so much content that I had to produce from the interviews and everything and coverage that, it took me a week to get all that out, let alone reading the regular books and trying to do all the regular interviews. Plus, everybody you run into them at San Diego, they remember that you exist. They're like, oh, let me come on the show. Let me promote this. Let me promote that. So I've been doing interviews not only all the interviews at Comic-Con, but I've been doing interviews every day post Comic-Con. I'm sure you guys have noticed there's been a ton of content over on the Comic Source YouTube channel. Really appreciate all the support. A couple of the books, a couple of the interviews, especially the Matt Fraction one, have done really great numbers. I guess once again showing that Batman is king. I mean, it's crazy how many downloads that episode has gotten, both on YouTube and the audio only. So all that being said, we're taking a look at the books from July 30th. It was a bit of a lighter week because it was the fifth Tuesday of the month. 7 books. So probably just about everything is going to make the top 5. I guess we'll see. But I thought it was a really strong week, which, Rocky and I had discussed possibly just merging it with the books that are out this week, which that episode will be out tomorrow. But man, I really thought these books deserved an episode of their own. So I thought it was a really strong week last week. What do you think, Rocky?
Well, the week of July 30th, I think it's worth distinguishing as a strong annuals week. We don't always get usually whenever there's a fifth week in a month, that's usually when we get DC annuals, and we got two annuals and a special this week, and they were all particularly strong. And it's not always the case that we have a strong annuals week for DC, but this week we did. And there's a couple that fell out of my top 5 that I wasn't big fans of, but for an annuals week, I'm very, very happy when we get strong annuals and good specials, because you're paying more for them. The price tag is higher, you get a bigger page count, but often sometimes that real estate isn't taken advantage of by a worthy story. But not so this week. This week in July 30th annuals week, I thought these were pretty good titles, and we'll be talking about it.
Yeah, and especially a lot of times it's not even necessarily the annuals. I mean, the annuals, I find the quality fluctuates sort of it's quite a large fluctuation between, the good quality ones and the bad quality. Like, it's just a huge range of quality that you get. But I'd say generally speaking, the anthologies that DC has been very fond of putting out for the last 5 years tend to be on the weaker side. And, there's reasons for that. First of all, you don't have as many pages to tell the story, so it's a little bit more difficult. On top of which, they're often, creators that are trying to prove themselves. So they haven't honed their craft and necessarily found their voice yet. So they just tend to be a little bit weaker. And I find myself going back and remembering those days when we longed for anthologies to see some of the lesser known characters. And now we get them and they're just not very good. So it's like, oh, be careful what you wish for. But I will say that the DC California Love anthology, that was kind of the DC summer special, if you will, was pretty strong this week as well. So anyway, let's kick it off with the first book that we're going to talk about. Maybe the special that ties in most closely to current continuity with what's going on right now. And that's the Justice League Dark Tomorrow special #1. I don't know that's necessarily, I don't want to say misleading, but to call this team Justice League Dark, because, if you go into it thinking, Justice League Dark Tomorrow, like, don't think of it like Justice League Dark Tomorrow special. You got to think of it as Justice League, pause, Dark Tomorrow, pause, special. So don't go into this thinking it's Justice League Dark and you're just going to see like Zatanna and Swamp Thing and John Constantine and that sort of thing. No, that's not what this is. So Mark Guggenheim and Mark Waid are the writers. Cian Tormey does a fantastic job on the art. Romulo Fajardo Jr. on colors. Dave Sharp on letters. And I really love it because we have this mysterious character. While reading it, had no idea who could be somebody who can time travel. We know that the time travelers are being killed by these Omega demons. We know time is broken. They, for some reason want to go in and prevent time travelers. We see Gold Beetle, who's a time traveler herself, being under fire and what have you. But this mysterious person that's kind of narrating the story, I'm not sure who it is. They drop certain hints at times that it's a time traveler, but clearly familiar, but then says, hey, I can't really tell you who I am because that could cause a problem and what have you. So I really enjoyed that mysterious aspect. And when they send them out, and it's funny, they call them kind of a ragtag team. But it's kind of funny because, like, really interesting characters. What I was just saying about the anthologies and using some more obscure characters. We know Airwave has been a little bit of a kind of a main character in Justice League Unlimited, so that's great. But Amazing Man, I couldn't tell you the last time Amazing Man showed up and was a main character, so fantastic to see him. And then I love that Mark Waid also incorporated Jonah Hex into Justice League Unlimited, because I remember the San Diego a couple years ago when Justice League Unlimited was announced, and Mark Waid is like, yeah, like, who do you want to be in the Justice League? And people in the audience were calling out names. He goes, they're in the Justice League, they're in the Justice League, they're in the Justice League. And then they kind of announced everybody's in the Justice League, right? And somebody said Jonah Hex, and he's like, oh, okay, maybe not Jonah Hex. Everybody but Jonah Hex. And then he finds a way to bring Jonah Hex in, right? So the other members of the team, Jonah Hex, Huntress, Marilyn Moonlight, who I just think is a fantastic character and such a great character design, Batman Beyond. And if you listen to my interview from Mark Waid at San Diego from last week, you'll know that these, he called them time shadows, I think is the word he used. So, a lot of these heroes, he kind of intimated that they're expendable. And what he means by that is they could be killed, but because they're not the like kind of official Plastic Man or Batman Beyond or Jonah Hex or whatever of the main universe, if they're removed from the timeline, it's not going to have like, ripple effects or, cause and effect kind of thing. But he said with one exception, there is one of them, and he wouldn't, he didn't want to say who, didn't want to spoil it, obviously, who, if that person dies, if they, they kind of are the official character, they're not a shadow, but we don't know who that is. So the mystery of that is cool as well. And then of course, seeing Plastic Man, he's always a fun character. And I think Guggenheim and Wade's, the Marks do just a fantastic job. This is well paced. This has, again, important context for what's going on, what's coming up with the DC KO event and all that. And obviously the Dark Side Legion as well. So I really enjoyed that aspect of it. I thought seeing Tormey art was good. If I had any complaint, and it's a minor nitpick, excuse me, it's that I thought the colors, they're a little muted, and I wasn't necessarily a big fan of that. This is big, giant superhero action, so I would have liked it to be colored a little brighter. I think that would have suited the book just fine. But I did really enjoy this. So this was in my top 3. Like without question, it was the first book I read, and yeah, it was kind of set the tone for a really strong week. So what were your thoughts on it, Rocky?
That was definitely in my top 3 too. I love this. Plus, I just want to give a shout out to my cap. This is my first official DC cap. I've been looking for this for like 40 years. I finally picked it up at San Diego Comic-Con. This is my first DC comic book review with my DC Comics hat. So I love it. So I love my cap. My cap gets pick of the week. Everything else is secondary. But I digress. I like. I enjoyed this. I love seeing Jonah Hex. I do have a theory. There's this character, this time traveler that the Omega Demons are trying to kill. And to be clear, it appears as if the Legion of Superheroes are the Legion of Darkseid heroes in conjunction with these Omega Demons are trying to wipe out time travelers. And this one time traveler who goes by the name Legend, and we don't know Legend's true identity, but I have a theory. This Legend character appears to have claimed to have known and interacted with Jonah Hex at some point in the past. My random wild card guess is that it's the Apache Chief or the Super Chief who made an appearance in the Lightning Saga in 2007 and who had some potential time traveling capabilities. That's my completely out of the wild card guess. Because Mark Waid is pulling out all the stops, having some absurd, crazy, all these characters, and I absolutely love it. Airwave, Gold Beetle, Marilyn Moonlight, Huntress, Plastic Man, Amazing Man, Batman Beyond, Jonah Hex, Omega Demons, and then we got Shadow Lass showing up at the end as part of the Legion of Darkseid hero villains rather, just crazy. And what's going on where is this all leading to? These heroes, this eclectic group of tomorrow tomorrow heroes get trapped in the future. They can't even get back into the 21st century by the end of this tale. A lot happens. There are so many crazy, wild moments. One of my favorite moments is when all of a sudden Plastic Man appears as a backpack on the back of Gold Beetle. It made me actually like chuckle and laugh out loud a little bit. But anyways, I I would never have dreamt to put what an odd array of characters to put together, and somehow it works. And that's even part of the inside joke of the story, is that this odd array of heroes manages to fight together surprisingly well against multiversal threats like Omega demons, and Jonah Hex has special bullets that can kill an Omega demon. Huntress's staff is a special kind of staff, so all of them are powered up a bit, which I like, because you get the feeling of these down and gritty heroes fighting this multiversal threat, and there's a leveling of the playing field a little bit here. And as somebody who is just a longtime DC reader, this is my 50th year reading DC Comics. This really is pulling it all. This is such a great moment, and we're building towards something, and this really got me excited. And this was completely out of the blue. One of the things I haven't been doing in the last year, I haven't been reading solicits, so I had no idea this Justice League Dark Tomorrow special was coming out. I didn't. So this was a complete pleasant surprise for me, and I love this story. So yeah, this was definitely in my top 3 for sure.
Yeah, just fantastic, and kind of I think a bridge to what's going to come. Again, Mark Waid talked about the team that Mr. Terrific's putting together in DCKO to kind of deal with the villains while the superheroes are having their own tournament to see who's going to absorb the Omega energy and try to take on Darkseid. All right, up next we have that DC California Love special that I mentioned. Ton of stories in here. As you might guess from the title, it is a kind of a Superman focused story, right? We're talking about Kal-El-Fornia. So I'm going to just go through here. I'll probably call out 1 or 2 stories in particular, but it starts off with Superman in C Spot Fly, written by Brian Q. Miller and art by Gerardo Sandoval, colors by João Canola, and letters by Carlos Mangual. Then we have Jimmy Olsen in The Gorilla Ex-Wife of Jimmy Olsen, very much in tone with a Jimmy Olsen story, no doubt. Written by Christophe Bogas, art by Jacoby Salcedo, colors by Francesco Segala, letters by Taylor Esposito. Then we have Power Girl and Before Sunrise from Joshua Hale Fialkov. Bruno Abdias handles the art, colors by Aaron Angiolini, letters by Josh Reed. Bizarro story, James Reed, art by John McKell, colors by Ian Herring, letters by Lucas Catoni. We have Lois Lane in Bite of the Apple, written by Megan Fitzmartin, art and color by Marcelo Taladano Vargas, and letters by Ariana Mayer. There's a Steel story written by Brandon Thomas with art by Junie Ba, colors by Chris O'Halloran, and letters by Aditya Bidikar. Got a couple Superboys teaming up, John Kent and Connell in Who Do You Belong To, written by Dave Welgaz, art by Joey Vasquez, colors by Luis Guerrero, and letters by Steve Wands. And finally, Supergirl, Something in the Water, written by George Mann, art by Travis Mercer, colors by Andrew Dollhouse, letters by Troy Petrie. So for me, the standouts were the Power Girl story. I mean, nothing was bad. I enjoyed them all. But for me, the standout stories were the Power Girl story by Joshua Hale Fialkov, which kind of reminded me that he's out there. And, I think he did I, Vampire, was one of the stories that he did, or one of the books that he did when the New 52 launched.
New 52, yeah.
Yeah. And I miss his voice. He works more in television than in comics these days. He's written other independent stuff and what have you as well. But I miss his voice in comics. Now, this Power Girl story, it's Power Girl and Ice. And there's a little bit of action at the beginning where Power Girl stops these, and Ice stop these guys, these terrorists that are trying to rob people at a basketball game, like take hostages or whatever. And they're kind of just talking about their life and comparing themselves, to each other. And Power Girl's talking about dating, and obviously Ice is currently single and whatever. But part of what I loved about it, I thought the art was fantastic. I just thought it was so good. So I would not be surprised to see Bruno Abdias start getting a lot more DC work because, and it's a little bit of DC house style, but again, I just thought the art was fantastic. It reminded me a little bit, almost like Nicola Scott, but like merged with Ivan
Yeah,
Reis a little bit. So
yeah, I could see
you
that.
know, yeah, it's again a style all its own, but I was just blown away. I thought the art was so good, and I did really enjoy the story because it's much more of a character piece as opposed to being crazy over the top superhero piece. Where I think some of these other writers, and again, I'm not trying to disparage them or anything, but this is their shot, this is their tryout, right, to get more work at DC, and that they're really trying to stick the landing, and these stories are wild and over the top, as opposed to Fialkov, who just lets the characters be the characters. And I really enjoyed that. I really enjoyed the interaction of Ice and Power Girl. So for me, that was a standout. Like if I could only pick one story or only recommend one story to for everybody to read out of this anthology, it would be that one. Um, but the other one that I thought was pretty good was also the Supergirl story. Again, it had really, really great art. It was funny. I liked the interaction between Supergirl and John Constantine. Um, and I think George Mann is decent writer. I've read a few of his DC things before. I'm not super familiar with his work, but it's a name that I recognize. But again, like where it really shines is the art. And I got a chance to meet Travis Mercer at San Diego Comic Con. He happened to be upstairs at the DC press area when I was up there doing some interviews. So I got a chance to meet him. He's a super nice guy, and mostly known for doing covers. But I mean, the art in this is fantastic as well. So,
Yeah.
like I said, mostly known for doing covers. But if this is what he can do with interiors, then can we get him on in a book doing interiors? Like I thought the art was fantastic, and the color work in both these stories is great as well. So for me, those were the two standouts, and they kind of stood head and shoulders above the others. Again, nothing was bad, but these two were like really, really good, and I really enjoyed them. So any of the stories, and I should also mention that I think this came in at number 6 for me when I was ranking things. No, it came in at number 7 actually, but that's just based on the strength of everything else this week, and also it was a bit of a smaller week. So, what about you, Rock? Any of these stories stand out?
Yeah, well, you picked those. You mentioned how great the art was. I agree that I'm used to a more traditional DC style, so I agree with you that Bruno Abdiaz's art in the Power Girl Before Sunrise story was very, very good, and the Supergirl art with Travis Mercer was excellent in that Supergirl story, Something in the Water. But I didn't like the stories. I thought the stories were. I just thought it was too much talking heads in the Power Girl story for my liking. The art was fantastic, but just talky, girly stuff. Again, I wanted a little bit more fisticuffs, a little bit more action, and the story in Supergirl was okay, but I actually got I really enjoyed the humor, the Jimmy Olsen story, the gorilla ex-wife of Jimmy Olsen, written by Christoph Bogax and art by Jacoby Salcida. I actually thought it was hilarious. Uh, and even though the art was a little wonky, but you expect that given the story. I mean, Jimmy Olsen is literally confronting his ex-wife, and of course he was married to a gorilla. Of course he was during his Silver Age stories, which were always wonky. And he ends up having a contest with the new husband of his former wife, and it was absolute nonsense, and a tire throwing contest, a banana eating contest, whoever could make gorilla noises the loudest, and it was wonky, but it was fun. I just thought it was more entertaining for me, and I found myself more glued into the story. So I actually found myself enjoyed that, and even the Bizarro story I thought was pretty decent too, and and the Bizarro story is in Against the Wind, written by James Reed, art by John McCall. I want to I want to give a shout out to him because these are stories that uh, uh, compilations like this, DC's California, Love, uh, if you're assigned to write a Jimmy Olsen story or Bizarro story, it's probably not going to get as much attention as it normally would. And I think in a sense, it's more challenging because how are you going to get eyes on it? And so I just want to give a shout out. I thought they did, the creative teams did a good job with Jimmy Olsen and Bizarro. These are out of continuity stories, but they were well done. They were well written. The art was very well done as well. And it was obviously very stylistic outside the traditional DC style. But this is exactly what what these anthologies purport to do, and I thought it showcased it very well. But those two stood out the most for me, and I did enjoy the Lois Lane story as well. I thought it was pretty good. Um, um, but I'll give a shout out to it. The Lois Lane story, "Bite of the Apple," written by Megan Fitzmartin, art and color by Marcial Toledano Vargas. It's probably one of the better stories I've enjoyed by Megan Fitzmartin, because I wasn't really a big fan of her Tim Drake Robin series, but I thought the Lois Lane story was pretty good. It showcased Lois Lane's reporting skills quite well, particularly in this day and age where journalism is often come under attack and ridiculed by YouTube media. So I thought it was actually well done, and I could definitely see some parallels between YouTube versus mainstream media and the story. So I thought that was well done. So kudos to Fitzmartin. And so yeah, but overall I thought it was good. I also ranked the comic. I put it in 6th place this week.
It's funny, like the reasons I liked the two stories that I called out were for exactly the reasons you didn't like them. That it was, you say you wanted more action. I liked that it was a little bit unexpected. That there were more character pieces as opposed to having a bunch of action. We did plenty of action in the other stories, so it was that's kind of interesting. So yeah, just everything's subjective, I guess. All right, up next we have the Nightwing annual. So it's Nightwing 2025 annual number 1. Written by the regular writer of Nightwing, Dan Waters. We have Francesco Francavilla, who handles the art and the colors. And I mean, he really knocked it out of the park. I don't. It's weird. Like, where is this going to be collected? Is what came to mind. Like, I have no problem with Francavilla's art. Like, I love his art style. I do think that his art style is a little more suited for horror or crime noir, as opposed to straight superhero stuff. But then on the other hand, this isn't exactly straight superhero stuff with what's been going on with Nightwing. But I find that to be interesting as well. And I did appreciate that this story tied in with what's going on in the regular continuity. Like, we get basically the origin of Olivia Pierce and how she ties into the Cirque du Sin and what the Cirque du Sin is and what have you. We even see mention of, Nightwing doesn't even really show up in this comic. It's just mentioned. We see Titan's Tower. We know he's, stuck in there with this mutated version of Batmite. So I really appreciated that. I liked seeing Maggie Sawyer. I'm a big Maggie Sawyer fan. I think she's a great character. Correct me if I'm wrong, Rocky. Maybe maybe you don't. But this is the first time it's been mentioned that Dan Turpin, not just Maggie Sawyer. Maggie Sawyer originally was in charge of the, I think it was called the SCU, Special Crimes Unit, in Metropolis. And that's where we saw her as a supporting character in a lot of Superman books during the Triangle era. And kind of her right-hand man was Dan Turpin, who was this kind of burly cop that always wore a bowler hat. And before they got rid of cigarettes and cigars in comics, he'd always be chewing on a cigar. This is the first time it's mentioned that he's working in Bloodhaven too. So it's great to even see him mentioned, although I don't think he shows up here. It's just Maggie Sawyer's talking to him on the phone. But anyway, I really enjoy those characters, so great to see them back here. I love that Dan Waters is continuing to make mention and build on kind of the mythos of Bloodhaven that Tom Taylor had established. And I was just a big fan of this, like tonally with what Waters and Francavilla were trying to do. I think they did a really, really great job. But again, I wonder, if you collect this with the art that Dexter Soy is putting in the regular book, that's going to be a little bit jarring, I think. But I think it's okay because this story does kind of stand alone on its own. And Olivia Pierce I wouldn't say she's a more sympathetic character now, but at least we have a better understanding of who she is. And it's a little meta, like it sort of ties in with comics, which I thought was really cool for Dan Waters to do that. So yeah, I was a big fan of this. I thought excellent job by everybody. Including Wes Abbott, the letterer. I don't think I mentioned his name. So yeah, I thought this was great. As far as rankings, it came into my top 3 as well. So what were your thoughts on it?
I love this. There's a guy by the name of Frederick Wortham wrote a controversial book called Seduction of the Innocent, and it led to the criminalization of crime comics across North America, not just the United States, but Canada. I did my law school thesis on crime comics, and so I read this particular issue written by Dan Waters with joy, and I love that the origin of Columbina, otherwise known as Olivia Pierce, formerly known as Olivia Hillman, and a member of the Cirque du Sin. She was a young girl, Olivia Hillman. Her father, Guy Hillman, was a prosecutor, and right off at the very beginning, her father, Guy Hillman, was a prosecutor prosecuting some people who had the audacity, prosecuting juvenile delinquents who were influenced by comic books, crime comics, and in this case, the Grey Ghost and Wonder Boy. And his own daughter, Olivia Hillman, attended a comic book store called Every Everybody Comics, and she's the girl from Everybody. That's who Olivia Hillman is, who would become Olivia Pierce, and she became obsessed with the Great Ghost and Wonder Boy, and she became obsessed with the writer of that comic book. The writer was Lloyd Carroll. And eventually she would grow up and she would kidnap Lloyd Carroll, and Lloyd Carroll would end up in an in a mental institution, all because she happened to be obsessed with it, and she began to associate he talked about how the circus is really the embodiment of superheroes, because the circus consists of like freaks of different kinds of people, but they're outcasts, but they're ultimately heroes. Leave it to a young abused Olivia Hillman, abused by her father, who was obsessive over it, and she came to think of heroes as maybe being that heroes were sort of the outliers of the circus, and that somehow the heroes embodied the status quo, and they sort of betrayed the circus, and the circus was always about outcasts and about doing something different. And Olivia Pierce, the woman who would become Olivia Pierce, in her own twisted mind, she associates that circus with rebelling against the status quo, and the heroes, and particularly Robin, embodied that. And you could see in this issue why she became obsessed with Nightwing. She associates Robin, who would become Nightwing, and you could see that. And that's one of the reasons why I appreciated Frank Villa's art here, is because he's got that perfect type of style, I think, that bridges that stylistically that time period between the past of the 1940s, of the late 1940s, and into the present. And again, really embodied so well with that opening page with Jessica, or pardon me, Olivia Hillman's father, i.e. Olivia Pierce's father, holding up in color a crime comic, Grey Ghost and Wonder Boy. And I thought it was so well done, and just the snapshots and the interplay between, like you said, very meta, and I thought it worked very, very well. And so you can almost understand this is the origin, the origin of the Comics Code Authority in DC Comics has just been written by Dan Waters, and instead they didn't have Frederick Wortham in the DC universe, they had Guy Hillman. Arguably, I don't know, but I thought it was nice. I thought Dan Waters did a good job, and I really loved the art. And so I don't know how they're going to fit it in, but I thought this is a pretty cool. This is a far more interesting origin for Olivia Pierce than what we've been led to believe. That at least now we understand the foundation of her psychopathy lies in comic books. So we should all be warned. But well
Yeah,
done.
and meta also in terms of Superman himself was inspired by the outfits that the strongmen in circus wore. So yeah, bringing it all full circle with circus and colorful costumes and all that. Really fantastic. The cover from Francavilla. No variants on this, just the one cover from Francavilla. Glad they did that because it's fantastic. And on that note, I should mention there's a Nathan Zerdy cover for the Justice League Dark Tomorrow special. That's Gold Beetle. I had to pick it up. It's so good. That cover's so awesome. Anyway, up next we have The Long Halloween, The Last Halloween, number 8. It's from writer Jeff Loeb, Becky Cloonan on art, Dave Stewart on colors, Richard Starking handles the letters. I loved Becky Cloonan's art on this, but that being said, it only came in at number 6 for me. So I don't really have a lot to say. I did enjoy it. a lot more than some of the previous issues. For me, this series has been just wildly inconsistent in terms of quality, but this is one of the probably maybe my first or second favorite issue of the book. I thought it was really, really strong. But anyway, where does it rank for you?
I ranked this at this point. This came in at number 4 for me. Uh, it could possibly go higher, but I agree with you on Becky Cloonan's art. This is actually her Becky Cloonan's art really is suitable for this. It never occurred to me until I saw it, just how suitable this is, because this feels very Long Halloween-ish. So kudos to Becky Cloonan. Her style just sort of naturally fits so well, and she's I gotta say, this is probably the best art I've seen from her in it's been a while since I've seen her art, to be honest, or at least that I can recall. But this is really well done. This particular issue, James Gordon is really Commissioner Gordon is on the prowl because his son was kidnapped, and this is a little bit of a recap issue, and so Gordon is. He's very angry. He's highly motivated, and we get Solomon Grundy. We get a lot of action. We get huge revelations. We got Gilda Dent revealing that she actually froze her eggs, and she reveals to Harvey Dent that she's actually pregnant with a child. So it looks like within DC continuity, looks like Two-Face is going to have another kid, even though just because of some frozen eggs that Gilda Dent had. Uh, there's a lot going on here. Now I got to take some responsibility. Maybe it's because I just haven't been I haven't really been I haven't really been following this too hard in my mind. We're 8 issues into this. This is a year-long story. I kind of I got to go back and probably have to read this all from beginning to end, because I forget some of the plot points, because there's just so much reading. And I'm so excited about Darkseid and the Absolute Universe and what have you. The Long Halloween is sort of like fallen by the wayside. And I think that's a little bit unfair. I'm not interested in Batman Hush 2, but I have to admit that The Long Halloween, Last Halloween, is a story that I'm kind of getting behind, and I really enjoyed the art. And it's a different story with Long Halloween. It just feels like better quality to me. So I like what Jeff Loeb's doing with The Long Halloween, and but less so with Hush 2. But in any event, it's very well done, and there's great art. I just wish I could comment more upon the story, but I just can't do it justice. So I apologize to those listening, but I have to. I'll have to go back and reread it and read it from the beginning to get a full appreciation of this.
Yeah, and I mean that's not. I don't think that's on you, Rocky. When I say the story has been wildly inconsistent in quality, I don't even think necessarily it's a critique on the story either. It's just a critique on the format. This is not a story that should be released in single issues. You need ups and downs in stories so that the highs have something to contrast against the lows. This is exactly the type of story that should be released as just one big trade, one big collection, and read it all at once. Kind of similar to, honestly, the original Last Halloween, those 13 issues. I mean, I remember reading them as I was buying them and thinking it was okay, but once I went back, a few years later and read the whole thing in one sitting, it was so much better. This is the same thing. Like, again, I agree with you 100%. I'm going to get much more out of this. It's going to feel better as a collected edition than it does as single issues, without a doubt. All right, up next, we have The Flash. Issue number 23. Only a few issues left of the Simon Spurrier run. And we've been critical of his run, but this is actually one of the better issues. And again, talk about wild inconsistency, right? So it's written by Simon Spurrier, art by Vasco Gregev, colors by Matt Herms, letters by Hassan Otsman-Elhaou. As I said, this comes in at number 5 for me. And it's kind of interesting. I think that Simon Spurrier kind of got his love of kind of wordplay and using big words or whatever. Like, a lot of times in his Flash run, we have said, he will kind of slide into the science gobbledygook, where he's just using a bunch of big science words, just throwing them at the wall and seeing what sticks. And it doesn't necessarily make sense, or it's a little hard to read. So here he doesn't fall into that trap because he has Shade, who tends to speak in flowery language anyway. So he gets to do it there instead. But it suits the character. So, I didn't necessarily have a problem with it as opposed to um, when he slides into that scientific gobbledygook, which was ridiculous. I liked the voice that he gave Shade. His characterization of Shade is a little different than we just had from, I think it was Alex Packnadell that did the Flash Annual a couple weeks ago. But it's not so far off that it seems ridiculous. I like the agency that Jay and Irie have here. I thought the Vasco Gregev art was good, and it does feel like we're making progress in the story, and we're getting close to the end, which thank God. And we know Mark Waid and Chris Cantwell are coming on the book once Simon Spurrier departs. Um, I certainly didn't ask for this. Like, where are we in terms of story? We went from the West family trying to take vacation in the land of Scarticus to being on the moon with hundreds of Wallies, fighting this war. It hasn't been fun. It hasn't been interesting. It's been a little bit monotonous at times and kind of slow going. But when I stand back and I look at each individual issue and judge them on their own merits, this is a strong issue. I thought the art was good. Again, I really enjoyed the Shade characterization and the Shade language, and the West kids get a chance to shine. But Wally, he almost takes a backseat in his own issue here. This is more about the Shade than anyone else, which, again, I'm okay with. I enjoyed the Flash Annual from Alex Packnadell, focused on the Shade, and I enjoyed this issue as well. So, again, coming in at number 5 for me. What'd you think?
I think that I think the character of Jay and Irie, I think what writer Cy Spurrier has done to Jay and Irie, particularly Jay, has just been so disappointing to me personally. I think Jay has become an unrecognizable character. There's a scene here that I found particularly frustrating for myself, where Jay is talking to Shade, and Wally has no idea what the hell the Shade is talking about, but somehow Jay does. And Jay, there's no reason why Jay should know what the Shade is talking about. Somehow, I mean, just because Jay is a shaper and he can shape things, I don't know why he just suddenly is he a mind reader too? Uh, he inferred that the Shade wants to die. I never got that impression. I even read the annual. I never got the impression Shade wants to die. But I guess we're supposed to infer that the Shade wants to give his life to save his he's willing to give his life to save Hope, to save his lover. I get, I guess I can get that, but the way all this build up throughout an entire annual. We had the Flash Bad Moon Rising annual, where it builds up the Shade, and the Shade has been essentially being blackmailed by Eclipso, and now all of a sudden it is completely undone by the Duke Ex Machina powers that the writer now has given Jay, who just reshaped, completely cures Shade's lover, and now Shade is just suddenly going to help the Flashes, and it's all good. And he takes them off to the Shadowlands, and then leaves the story. It just seems so convenient, and I admit that it's a much simpler issue. But to have all that sort of esoteric buildup that was sort of confusing getting here, and these little side whatevers that were going on, and then to get here and it's so much more simplified, almost too oversimplified and too quickly resolved. It's just too, the pacing is just, everything is just, the whole story is just wonky to me. It's kind of a little bit all over the place. But I agree, it's one of the better issues. It's one of the better issues because I like Shade, but then Shade leaves at the end of this issue. And I kind of wish he would stay. So yes, it is one of the better issues. I agree, and it's a nice interplay following the Bad Moon Rising special. But I still have my frustrations with it, and it fell outside my top 5. But it was one of the better Flash issues.
Yeah, I mean, it's perfectly fair. I did get the impression that Shade. I don't think it's that Shade wants to sacrifice himself. It's not that if he dies, she lives. It's that if she's going to die, he wants to be able to die too. He doesn't want to live without her, basically. So he's looking for a way to end his immortality. And of course, Eclipso double crosses him. I thought that was done well, also. But I do agree that if you go and look at the Jay and Irie we had in the Jeremy Adams run, which we enjoyed, a lot more, and you look at the Jay and Irie here, that they are totally unrecognizable and have been aged up somehow inexplicably. And yeah, I guess you can't think about it too hard, or stops making sense if that makes sense. Anyway, let's move on. Up next, we have Gotham City Sirens Gotham City Sirens Unfit for Orbit #5. Um, but actually, before we get to that, speaking of Travis Mercer, there is a Travis Mercer cover for that issue of Flash that I thought was really, really outstanding. It reminded me a little bit of Brett Booth in the composition, but it's much more like Travis Moore in terms of the smoothness and the bright colors. So I did appreciate that as well. So anyway, on to the final issue of Gotham City Sirens Unfit for Orbit, issue #5 from writer Leah Williams. Hanning is the artist, Alex Guermas on colors, and Tom Napolitano on letters. I really enjoyed this. This entire series I thought was really fantastic. And this issue came in for me at #4. But I'm going to let you go first. What do you think of it?
Well, first I want to give a shout out to Gillian March's covers. The cover for Gillian March, one of the variant covers, I really like it. One of the advantages for those listening, for those who watch this on YouTube, these reviews, I have, whether Jace likes it or not, I get to choose what covers I show and visually, because Jace often he's referenced a few covers that sometimes I get lazy. I don't put all the variant covers on these on display, and so. But Gillian March, and I know Jace, you're not as much of a fan of his as I am, but in any event, I love the variant cover. And apologies to you because you referenced that Travis Mercer cover, which I did not have on display because I was in my efforts of putting the thumbnails together. But in any event, I this was a good wrap up for this series. You and I have both been enjoying. I think it's fair to say both of us have enjoyed this sort of I guess quasi sequel to the original Gotham City Sirens series by Leigh Williams, Unfit for Orbit. This is the final issue. This has been a fun series, and the art has been a pleasant surprise for me. And it's grown on me. The art's grown on me from issue to issue. It's gotten more sexy from issue to issue. The art in this final issue is even more sexy, which is good. It's because I'm slowly getting used to the manga. There's a manga anime sort of style that's been influencing DC art gradually more and more and more over the last 10, 15 years or whatever. And while I'm not a big fan of that, it is starting to grow on me, and I have an appreciation for it. And there is a sexiness to it. Who would have thought that the Gotham City Sirens could take on Despero? But yet somehow they've managed to do that. And Leigh Williams has actually managed to make the story possess a degree of verisimilitude, given the complete wonkiness of the story itself. And the weapon that ultimately ends up being used is such that they managed to dismantle it, and unfortunately it would cause more destruction. But fortunately, Power Girl shows up at the end, manages to help them out. The conduit, which was the whole central conceit of the story, is that Catwoman was going to be. It was going to be a $2 or $3 million heist, and they got to steal something called a conduit. The conduit ended up being this kid with sort of like this strange psychic powers, which Despero wants to use to enhance his weapon to basically use against the Earth to spread his mind control over the planet, and ultimately that is defeated. And what stands out to me is the art. It's the panel work is quite well done. I want to give a shout out to the artist Hanning, very well done. So not only does it have more sex, have a degree of sexiness that I like. I would always like a little bit more because I'm the Pyrian fanboy that I am. But there's a lot of action here. There's more action than sexiness. But hey, that's okay if there's at least there's not. At least when there is talking heads, it's usually when they're kicking each other's asses or engaging in a lot of fun, which is what I bloody well expect from a comic book. And I really love this. And yeah, and again, I had a lot of fun with this issue. And this is something where on a Sunday I might even read it from beginning, read all 5 issues again. I got all the connecting covers from Gillian March. But now this time, the first series I can legitimately say were cover buys, but this one wasn't. I actually enjoyed the story much more. So kudos to Leigh Williams. I think she got taken off Power Girl just when she was finding her stride. So at least it's nice to see that she found her stride here a little bit in this series. And I mean, I'd even be looking forward to, if this is going to be an annual thing, have Lee Williams come back and do a third story with Gotham City Sirens. I wouldn't have an objection to that because I enjoyed this. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, first of all, Poison Ivy's badass in this
Yeah,
series.
yeah,
She's so like between this and her regular series that we have coming out right now that G. Willow Wilson is writing. Poison Ivy is just a fantastic. I never thought I'd be such a big Poison Ivy fan because she was always almost like a mustache twirling villain in a way. A lot of times in the past, and she's grown so far beyond that, which is great to see. So that's fantastic. The other thing that I love about this, and I've said this throughout, um, Leah Williams' ability to create really wonderful character interaction between the Sirens is where this shines. And there's no greater proof of that in this particular issue than when Power Girl shows up. Power Girl, who's not a member of the Gotham City Sirens, but she shows up here. Her appearance makes complete sense, and the interaction and the dialogue and the conversation that she has with Harley and everything is fun, and it makes sense in terms of fitting into continuity with where these characters are in their own books and that sort of thing. That's exactly what I want from a comic, especially one like this where you could make the argument, well, this kind of stands on its own in a way, right? So why am I supposed to care about it or blah blah blah? But when you tie it in so well as Leigh Williams does, you end up with a really great story. So I thought it was fantastic. You're right about the art. The art is great as well. And then in terms of, hey, where does Leigh Williams go from here? I just want to mention, I hope you guys all got a chance to check out my Ignition Press interview earlier this week I did with the executive team for Ignition Press. And the reason I bring it up is because one of the first titles that they're launching with, it's actually it's part of the first 7 launch titles is what they're calling them. It's the second one that comes out. So I think it comes out the second Wednesday in September. It's called Voyeur. And it's Leigh Williams and David Baldione, that same creative team that we had on Power Girl, as Rocky mentioned, that were just finding their stride when the series got canceled. But it's called Voyeur, and it's about this guy who's managed over years to get a job at a high-end resort. He's an art thief, and he gets a job at a high-end resort where they have a lot of like $1 million paintings, whatever, that he's trying to steal. And this woman shows up, and she's an art dealer, and she recognizes the guy, and there's like this mutual attraction. He's been watching her on the cameras for days and days as she's been there, and she's noticed that the cameras are following her around. She meets him, she recognizes him because he's a known art thief or whatever, and there's this mutual attraction, and it's super sexy and spicy, but they're also in the middle of an art heist. And do they trust each other? Are they going to double cross each other? So if you're a fan of things like Thomas Crown Affair, you will absolutely love this. And so I got a chance at San Diego to pick up what they call a preview of it. They had like the first 8 pages of issue 1. It was fantastic. Baldione is breaking like all the rules, like going sexy in a way he never has before. It's just so fantastic. So I just bring it up. I know this is supposed to be a DC podcast, but I bring it up because if you loved this Gotham City Sirens, make sure you pick that up, right? Because DC's never going to be as titillating and as seductive and sexy as Rocky would like, because it's DC Comics. But if you want something that's for mature readers where you're actually going to like see nudity and see sexiness, whatever, I'm telling you, man, Voyeur from Ignition Press. You still have time to pre-order it. Trying to remember, I can get you the pre-order date right now, actually, because I want to say it might even be next Monday. That's the pre-order date. But let me just double check. It is. It's next Monday. So you have until August 11th to pre-order. So you definitely might want to do that if you're a fan of Leigh Williams. Yeah, Rocky's got the cover right there, which is really fantastic. And yeah, I can't wait to read more of this book. So anyway, let's move on. Last book that we're going to talk about is Titans 2025 Annual #1. It's written and drawn by Phil Jimenez, Eric Prianto on colors, Wes Abbott on letters. So you wonder what Phil's been up to since winning his last Eisner. I mean, he won he won one for his work on
Historia.
yeah, Historia, and then followed that up with a win for his story, short story in one of the anthologies. Super fantastic. Obviously, he's a big fan of the Titans. He credits George Perez as one of the biggest influences on his career. And so we have a Donna Troy story here, which I had forgotten just how convoluted Donna Troy's history in the DCU is.
Yeah,
But I mean, Phil is just a perfect person to tie it all together.
he
His art
is.
is fantastic. Um, every cover here is great. Joelle Jones has an awesome variant cover. Daniel Sampere has a gorgeous cover that kind of reminded me of that classic Starboy cover for Legion of Superheroes. I think it was issue 307 because she has her costume is black with kind of a Starfield pattern and she blends into the background, which is also a Starfield pattern. So yeah, there was nothing not to like about this, but I'm gonna let Rocky go first, and if there's anything I need to add, I will. But this came into my top three, no doubt. So anyway, take it away, Rocky. What do you think?
Yeah, this is such a love letter. You know, I've, I mean, my first comic book was Superboy and Legion of Superheroes back in 1976. I think probably, and then probably the truly epic comic that really got me into comics was George Perez Marvel Wolfman's The New Teen Titans, and I love Donna Troy, and who doesn't love Donna Troy? But you know, she was even though Donna Troy had a convoluted history. You know, it was actually less convoluted back in the 80s during the Perez and Movement era. It became complicated over time since then with her when she became a Dark Star and Troya and then her husband died and her kid was killed and then there was then Nightwing discovered who she was and found out more secrets of her past and there was all kinds of stuff and all of that to Phil Jimenez's credit, he's incorporated into one massive story here, absolutely beautifully rendered. And he didn't just pull a Jeff Johns. He did something I think was actually better because he actually this was even more character centric and than a lot of John's work. I found this was really remarkable what he did because right from the foundations of a young Donna Troy and her relationship, the loss of her, you know, with her her childhood trauma, the loss of her family in a fire, early days with Wonder Woman, her early her issues with Hippolyta, her basically, I guess you could call surrogate sort of stepmother on Paradise Island. When Wonder Woman took she became a sisteress of Wonder Woman, and just the growth from that, and even the her relationship with her fellow Titans, and it sort of it upgraded this, and so he pulls a little bit of a Jeff Johns, and he also pulls he pulls a little bit of his best, the best of Mark Waid in terms of telling Silver Age stories, but with a modern day sensibility, and he updates her a little bit because when she's younger, she has a laptop, you know, and so just it's just so well done and there's wonderful scenes of a young Donna Troy talking to Alfred in the Batcave and getting to know the Titans for the first time and her first kiss. I mean, there are so many moments. This is wordy. There's a lot of talking heads here. It's wordy, and there are pages where there's a lot of exposition, but there's also pages where Phil Jimenez knows he's smart enough to let his art shine. And I particularly love the page where you know, she's never been kissed, and a young Dick Grayson as Robin offers to kiss her, and that worked out so well. A young early hints of the attraction between Roy Harper and Donna as well, and also a major revelation at the end. So it's not just telling the full Donna Troy story and encapsulating it all into one beautifully rendered issue and written issue, but we get something else to build on because it ends on a revelation that there are other members of Donna Troy's family that she was not aware of. The centerpiece, the heart of this issue is her discovering who her father was, her biological father, but never actually really meeting him. And the revelation that flows from that is really the centerpiece of this story. and it has the gravitas that it does and the emotional impact that it does, because you really get the full scope of who Donna Troy is and what she's experienced. And it's a very touching story. It's very, very well done. And I would be hard pressed to, I read this and I actually want to go read Teen Titans. I'm looking forward to reading the next issue of Titans now, having read this. And so this is something that I didn't think was possible. It made me uh, remember nostalgically the Perez Woven era, but also I'm glad of how far she's come as a character, and I'm looking forward to reading more adventures of Donna Troy. This was very well done. Phil Hammond has a lot to be proud of here. The art here is just fantastic, because some of the pages here are just absolutely gorgeous. And yeah, so I'll let you. I'm sure you're going to sing its praises too. It's that well done.
Yeah, I actually don't. I mean, you kind of said it all. It's amazing to me that Phil's been doing this as long as he has, and he's just getting he continues to improve. Like there's so much emotion in this. Like I don't know how you can read this and not be a fan of who Donna Troy is. As a person. Like forget about her as a hero. This isn't a book about her. You know, battling villains or monsters or whatever. This is a very human story. It's very emotional, and Phil just nails it, beat after beat after beat. Is Donna Troy perfect? No. Is her life perfect? No. Has she been through a lot? Yes. Relatable. She feels like a real person. She feels like somebody you would want to know, like somebody that you root for as a person, to have a good life, to be happy, to find happiness. That's kind of how I feel after reading this. And you're right about the artwork, especially the fact that he's drawing Donna over a bunch of different years. He does a fantastic job of not drawing Donna younger as just a smaller adult Donna, like so many artists do, right? Well, how do I draw a kid? Well, I just make a smaller version of how I draw them as an adult. No, the anatomy's different. The proportions are different. He does a great job with that. It definitely feels like a huge chunk of story. I mean, I think it's 40 pages or 44 pages, but it even feels longer than that. Definitely a love letter to a certain era of Titans, as opposed to making me want to read more Titans. I mean, not that I don't want to read more Titans now, but it almost made me nostalgic for the Wolfman Perez run. But at the same time, that's of its time, and I'm sure if I went back and read it now, it'd be a little wonky. But when you talk about kind of the soap opera feel and how much they focused on relationships between the characters and what have you, I mean, nobody did it better. There was a reason that book was a bestseller. So, yeah, I mean, there's nothing bad I can say about this issue. I wouldn't be surprised if Phil wins yet another Eisner for it, because it's just that good. It's absolutely amazing. All the covers are great. And yeah, I was blown away, and it was great to see Phil, as you said, pull in all these different threads of Donna, different versions. A lot of her convoluted history has had to do with sort of the DC reboots at times. Because, based on when Wonder Woman was supposed to appear, you couldn't really make Donna Troy fit into the timeline, and then things change or whatever. So different writers have done different things to, try to make it make sense. But I think Phil has done a fantastic job. And I sort of wonder what went into the decision of letting Phil do this annual. Like, did he go to DC and want to do it? Did DC come to him and say, hey, we kind of want to clean up Donna Troy's history? I mean, she technically has a higher profile in the Titans book than she ever has right now, because she is the leader. Dick has turned over the leadership of the Titans to her. So that's interesting as well. Going back and getting the classic version of the Teen Titans costumes with Starfire and Robin and Kid Flash and Cyborg. Changeling, to me, he'll always be Changeling. Raven, like that page, that splash page, which is almost a recreation of the cover of New Teen Titans #1. And there's definitely nods to George Perez and Marv Wolfman in this as well. So yeah, again, nothing not to like. I thought it was absolutely fabulous. I was blown away. I was smiling from ear to ear when I read it. And yeah, I thought it was really emotional, very touching, and made me like Donna Troy, more than I ever have. And the last thing I'll say, in terms of art, not only does Phil give us sort of accurate depictions of Donna as she grows over the years, he changes her hairstyle up as she grows as well, or even within, you know, her as an adult, different hairstyles, which I appreciated. Right, so often we get somebody wearing their hair like the same way every time, and we know that's not what women do. They don't wear their hair the same like day after day after day after day after day. But yet that's what we get in comics because, you know, it just makes sense, makes it easier for the artist. But anyway, I thought it was absolutely fantastic, and yeah, it was definitely in my top three. So that's it for the single issues we're going to review from last week. There also was the DC crossover with Sonic the Hedgehog issue number 5, which we haven't been covering any of those, but it did come out last week. In terms of trades, ton of trades last week. Absolute Batman had its first trade that you could get in either hardcover or softcover. And obviously that collected the first 6 issues of the Absolute Batman run from Scott Snyder and Nick Dragotta. Again, pick your poison, whether you want hardcover or softcover. Also, DC: The New Frontier, classic Darwin Cook story, both written and drawn by Darwin. Has a compact comics edition, so $10. If you've never read that, oh my God, it's 416 pages of Darwin Cook art for $10, and a great story. And like, just that story epitomizes DC like better than maybe any story ever. Way better than Kingdom Come, although Kingdom Come has its place. But the best endorsement I can actually give for DC: The New Frontier is that, and Jimmy Palmiotti has been asked this many times because many people feel he would be a fantastic editor-in-chief for DC Comics, and I completely agree. Now, he doesn't want the job because of the politics involved, but I have asked him this question. I've seen other people ask him the question in the past. What would he do if he was editor-in-chief at DC Comics? And he has been consistent in his answer. The first thing he would do if he was editor-in-chief at DC Comics is make every creator that's working for DC read DC: The New Frontier by Darwin Cook. I mean, that says it all, right? That says it all right there. This book epitomizes what the DC universe should be in terms of hopefulness and heroism and courage and all that. And it's gorgeous to look at. So so that's there. If you've never read it, $10, you can't beat that. It gets my highest possible recommendation.
I think you're actually, the collections, I think that comes out August 6th, doesn't it? Like, we're doing July 30th. Are you reading? That's
you know
fine.
what?
I think that I can bring that up.
Yeah.
But
yeah, no, you are 100% correct. I apologize, everybody, because we're a week behind. So I'm not seeing any collections for July 30th. Did we?
well, yeah. Well,
Hold on. For some reason, it's not loading. Let me oh, there it goes. Let me refresh the page.
well, I do have them up on the screen. I know I did.
Yep. Okay. Yep. I got it. Okay. So for all right. Well, I'll just have to repeat everything I said about that fantastic book when we do the collections again next week. But yes, so the collections that were out on. Okay, so I switched it to the collection. Okay, so we've got the Terrifics, the complete collection, trade paperback, which was also a great story from Jeff Lemire back in the day when Dan Didio was trying to do something a little different with DC Comics. Man, that initiative, that new age of heroes, really came and went quicker than it probably deserved to. But this collects the whole series, 1 through 30, and Terrifics Annual 1. I didn't even realize it ran for that long. 30 issues, but that's such a great team. Mr. Terrific, Phantom Girl, Plastic Man, Metamorpho. God, just seeing that cover reminds me how much I love that series. It was so good. We also have Superman by Philip Kennedy Johnson, Omnibus Volume 1. So 1,032 pages for $125. Collects all Phil Johnson's Superman work up to this point. Harley Quinn Volume 1, Destructive Comics trade paperback. This is our current run, 44 through 49 by Elliot Kalin. We also have Superman by Kurt Busiek Book 2 hardcover, which collects the second half of Busiek's run on Superman from the 2000s. 720 pages for $50. Justice League International Book 2, Around the World. This is classic J.M. DeMatteis, Keith Giffen stuff. I think this was after Maguire although it does have a Maguire cover, but yeah, it was after Maguire had left the book. So you got art by Ty Templeton and Bart Sears, what have you. But again, that's really classic stuff. And then Creature Commandos presents Frankenstein, Agent of Shade, Book 2. So this is collecting the New 52 series that came out when the New 52 started. Collects issues 0 and then 8 through 16, and a couple of Flashpoint issues as well that tie in. That's Matt Kent and Jeff Lemire. I think Lemire started it, and then he left the book, and Kent came on. So that's really classic stuff as well. So those are the collections that are out this week, as opposed to the other ones I mentioned first. Thanks for the correction, Rocky. I didn't realize I was on the wrong date. So anyways, time for book of the week. As I said, only 7 books this week, so it was actually pretty easy to rank them, and I thought they were really strong. So as I mentioned before, coming in at number 7 for me is DC's Kal-El-Fornia Love. And I really could flip-flop that between 7 and 6. Like I go back and forth. But 6, I have Batman The Long Halloween, The Last Halloween. Maybe I give the slight nod to that because of Becky Cloonan's art. Coming in at number 5 is The Flash, number 23. Number 4, Gotham City Sirens, number 5. At number 3, the Justice League Dark Tomorrow special, which again, great to see those characters, especially Marilyn Moonlight, and how much it ties into what's going on with Darkseid and the Omega Energy. Number 2, and this was so tough. Like the 2 annuals, the Nightwing annual and Titans annual, were both absolutely fantastic. But flip a coin, I went with Nightwing 2025 annual number 1 as my number 2, which leaves Titans 2025 annual number 1, and the incredible work by Phil Jimenez on Donna Troy as my book of the week.
It's funny. I had the same dilemma as you with the same 2 comics, but ranking coming in at number 7 for me was The Flash 23. 6 was DC's Kal-El-Fornia Love. Coming in at 5 was Gotham City Sirens, Unfit for Orbit 5. Coming in at 4 was Long Halloween, Last Halloween, number 8. Coming in at number 3 was Justice League Dark Tomorrow Special, number 1. I love the Nightwing Annual 25, number 1, and I love the Titans Annual. It was I love crime comics. But the reality is that normally you chose Titans, so I should go with the Nightwing Annual. But the reality is that Phil Jimenez. I mean, I got to give credit where credit's due, and I know we've sort of switched sometimes, going back and forth, but I'm not going to do that because his art was that good, and his story was that excellent. It's deserving of it's a double win for Phil Jimenez this week. So it was I'll have to go with the Titans annual.
I fully endorse that. Yeah, a lot of times we like to spread the love, but I love it. Like, not only did we pick the same book of the week, our top 3 is exactly the same.
Yeah,
Teen Titans at 1. Nightwing at 2, and Justice League Dark at 3. I like that. Like, it's cool to have stuff be diverse, but sometimes when things align, it's almost like even more of an endorsement of how great these comics are, that we both rank them the same. So so fantastic. So again, everybody, thanks for joining. Sorry that it's late. We'll get out the episode for this week tomorrow. Hope you're enjoying all the content over on the Comic Source YouTube channel. When you head over there, make sure you like, comment, subscribe. Putting out a ton of interviews, both from San Diego and after, that people started to come on. If you want to learn more about Ignition Press, you can go over there and check that out. All my conversations with DC creators over at San Diego Comic-Con are on there. Just tons of great content. And if you prefer listening audio only, obviously all that stuff's available on the podcast feed as well. Just go to whatever app or platform you get your podcast, do a search for the Comic Source and subscribe. And if you are listening to this audio only on our podcast feed, we appreciate it. But be sure to head over to Rocky's channel on YouTube, where normally we release our DC Spotlight every week. But when you're there, if you watch it there, you can see the covers and the art that we're talking about. So once you're there, like, comment, subscribe as well. Ring that notification bell. And definitely, everybody, if you're in for a little bit of a longer listen, you have a long car ride, you're working out or whatever, check out our wrap-up of San Diego Comic-Con. We had a blast. It was so much fun. And, just to sit or lay on the bed in my hotel room on Sunday night and recap the weekend just really brought home how much fun we had there. So, again, we appreciate all the support, everybody. We wouldn't do this if you guys weren't out there listening. So thanks for tuning in as always, and we'll talk to you next time.
Catch you later.